So I guess, well, to start with ideas, how do you guys, once you've thought of an idea, do you guys just keep that in your head, or do you write that down? And like, how do you guys do it?
I personally have to write it down or I'll forget it. Like, I have to write it down and I have to write a little bit of context with it as well. I have a text conversation with myself and I've had that for years and years. And it just, all it has in it is like blurbs. Like, nothing in there makes sense. But I always have like a little, like, what is this kind of section in there too. So I always take a little bit, like for writing rhymes, for example, like I'll write things that rhyme and then it'll make no sense, but I'll expand on that later. So I jot it down there and then I take it somewhere else later and expand on it.
When I have an idea, I will always, usually I'll have like a general video idea, and then oftentimes I'll think of ideas and ideas for the videos, and I'll just and then I'll just jot them down like in brackets next to the title. So basically, so oftentimes I'll just flesh out an idea over the course of time, and then when it comes to then creating a video or a story, then I'll usually have this pretty nicely fleshed out idea by that point, and then I'll use that a lot of the time. Um, and yeah, I think that pretty much covers that.
And then is it pretty easy from there?
Yeah. So yeah, usually by that point, because usually I always go with ideas that I've already fleshed out. I have already have some nice stuff thought up and stuff, and it's nice as well because then you can kind of play off yourself as well. Because sometimes I'll like look back on an idea I thought of months ago, and then realize, oh yeah, and this is also cool because this, and so basically I'll start expanding on ideas I already had ages ago as well. So it really leads to like a nice setup, I feel. Because then as well, you avoid ever running out of things. I guess essentially, like I've got like just folder file filled with ideas and stuff. So yeah, so it works nicely because I'm never have to worry about not having ironically, because I'm fucking up the sentence, but I never have never have to worry about not having anything to say then, because I've fleshed out this idea over the course of usually weeks or maybe even months.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be really cool to get a peek in there. I know that's super personal. I'm not asking for that, but like when people like die, like it'd be cool to like just open up that vault and just see what comes out.
Yeah, I'd honestly love to show that, but I love the mystery element behind releasing a video. Like I don't like, if I told you what ideas I had, and then I like, I just like it, going into your feed and then it popping up that, oh, this idea. I feel like if I told you beforehand, it wouldn't be as cool, I guess.
Yeah, there'd be an expectation behind it then.
I guess so. Yeah.
Like it needs to be like this. Like I've been trying not to tell you guys anything about Exhale just because like I don't want the expectation to not be lived up to.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Like for example, like with song leaks, like once a certain song leaks, people expect the entire album to take that direction. Then.
Okay. Generally, when I was younger, I kept ideas in my head. But actually, that sounds weird to say. No, because when I was very young, I wrote when I was okay. So when I was like probably a baby, obviously I wasn't writing, right? But then
I don't know, man. I saw Baby Geniuses.
So then but then I went through another phase where obviously I still had ideas flowing in, but I think I was like kind of embarrassed to write or whatever. So I didn't write for a year. This is probably like a conversation for another time, but then I started writing again. But I guess generally I would say my basic process now is an idea will come to me and then I'll try and visualize. I think what works best for me is if I can flesh out the narrative. Like if I understand the ending and the beginning, generally then it's fun for me to fill in all the little spaces in between. And that's kind of this guy Sid Field, who wrote kind of what's like considered one of the Bibles of screenwriting. He says that no, your ending, then your beginning, then plot point 1 and 2. But basically, I try and understand where I'm going with it, with an idea or a character, and then just let it flow from there, sort of like a causal back and forth, cause and effect. Basically, my basic process now is I'll have ideas in my head. I'll have the basic plotting in my head, and then I'll write it out, and that's essentially how I work nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, because it's always that debate of like, are you someone who just it flows, or are you a plotter, someone who plans it out by stage? So it seems we all seem to fall in that camp of outlining first.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think everyone shares obviously a bit of both, like or some percentage of both. No one's 100% and zero of the other. So when it comes to creative processes, I used to actually just keep them all in my head when I was a kid. I mean, I know I mentioned writing down in a notebook. So I think I originally had them in my head, but then at some point, like I picked up the pen and paper and just used to write and write and write. And then I went through a phase where I kind of was, I guess, embarrassed or ashamed to be known as like, oh, this kid's into creative writing. So I stopped for years. Then I got back into it, and now I would say my process is I feel like it's still evolving, but generally I think my best work lately has been when I listen to music and I kind of have like maybe an idea of character or a plot in my head. I listen to music, let's say a specific song, and I kind of let that evoke certain images in my head. And I think the important part is I understand the ending and the beginning, which is Sid Field, this guy, he wrote this book called Screenplay. It's a great book, but he mentions that like knowing your beginning and then knowing your ending, then your beginning, and then plot point 1 and 2. So I think as long as I know where I'm going in my head, I kind of just then I can sit down and start writing, and I usually just write like a chain of events that are cause and effect, starting from the beginning all the way working to the end. So I kind of fill in that huge middle portion on the fly. But I generally have an idea for where it wants to go, like the main character, some other characters perhaps, and then obviously how it starts. But I've noticed I do kind of like starting from the end, which is kind of a weird thing maybe, but I do really like knowing the end. So I think that's generally how I work lately.
Very similar. I like to. I always have outline the main points, I guess, and then all the in between stuff. And like also, one thing I notice as well is like sometimes the themes of the creation sometimes won't immediately connect with me until I'm writing it. So like for example, when I wrote my dog shit novel, like I didn't figure out the themes for that necessarily until like chapter 10 when I was able to look over the first 10 chapters. That's when I then was able to see, oh yeah, this is leaning toward the theme of this. So that's how I tied into that then.
Did you know like where you wanted to end up with the novel when you started though?
Yeah, like the main plot points, like beginning, middle, end, maybe like specific scenes and a general character arc and that kind of thing. I did have that planned out, but then like just like extra themes and like little nuances to the story and characters were stuff I just kind of developed and learned pretty much as I went along, and I got to know the world I was creating and characters and everything. So a mixture of both styles, I guess, in a way, but like heavily outlining first.
Yeah, I think everyone has to have some of both. Like have a percentage of like you can't be what is it like some terms were like you can't be 100% a gardener that just like plants the seed and watches it grow and you just fly by the seat of your pants, but you can't also be 100% the architect that plots out every single thing so that by the time they write there's like no writing needed to be done. I think everyone works with somewhat of some percentage of both of each one.
Interesting.
How did we develop our writing styles? We kind of already have kind of segued into that a bit already, but
yeah, let's just let it flow.
Sure. Yeah. So did you guys have like a specific way you developed a writing style, or was it just a case of just continuously practicing and just kind of picking up what was and wasn't working? John, do you want to talk?
Yeah, I mean, my writing style, I'm very feeling oriented, so I'll I'll write a song about rain, so I'll write a bunch of more dark adjectives, or like the precipitation, the wetness from it, the puddles. Like I'm writing more of like a feeler, And if I'm writing a short story that happens to be silly, for example, I always draw inspiration from that old school Nickelodeon pool that I like to go back to, and they were very random and very silly, and I was like my main source of inspiration for that. So it's like if I for example want to write a story about some guy going to the market in a short story written by me, he's never just gonna walk down the street and get to the market. There's gonna be like a sinkhole filled with ghostly cacti or something. You know, and he's gonna have to figure out a way to get around that, and that'll be the first part of my short story. And he's gonna be like, dang it, all I wanted was some cornbread. So so I have a really like I don't know, I want to say like chaotic, but I don't think I follow any linear set of rules when it comes to outlining.
Comes to developing my writing process, one thing I really was was working on figuring out was trying to find because I'm someone who loves obviously like infusing elements of comedy and stuff into my stuff. So a big part of developing my voice and writing style was trying to figure out the balance of serious comedy, analytical, all that kind of thing. I was really interested because my first few videos I actually were very kind of just made up stuff as I went along, in terms of getting referring to specific game events and stuff. But then, from that, I then kind of honed in more on the craft side of it, and that the nuances of delivering a line. It's kind of hard to explain because there's so many little decisions you kind of make as you go along. Mm-hmm. But for example, instead of the example I gave was how I noticed a lot of my favorite YouTubers and stuff really nail the idea of show don't tell, in the sense that, for example, instead of saying, "Oh, this game mechanic is terrible," they'll show it by showing them trying to use the game mechanic but getting progressively more pissed off at it, and that gives the impression that this gameplay mechanic sucks, but it's doing it in a more entertaining way. And that really helped evolve my, once I, did that and kind of analyzed what they did and kind of applied it to my style, that's what really led to a big evolution in my style. And I noticed actually my writing improved dramatically when I tried these different mediums like YouTube compared to when I was just doing, fiction writing, for example.
Yeah, the show versus tell thing is something they really pound in you. At college, I had a bunch of creative writing courses I took, and they would all say that. So I heavily relate to that.
I do. I mean, I think they definitely pound that into you for a reason. I mean, which I think we're all in agreement with. But it's so much better when a piece of work respects its audience enough to not have to pander to the lowest common denominator and just show the information visually, and you put the pieces together in your head.
I think that's a big part of it, because when you're just telling so much, it leads to so much exposition that makes you feel like you're talking down and trying to over-explain everything.
Yeah, and I think it really, well, especially for film, but really for anything too. I mean, video games, novels, but film especially, I don't know, almost kind of feel like it tarnishes the medium, or it changes the medium, because film by definition, as Sid Field would say, to bring him up again, he says a screenplay, or he says film is basically a story told with pictures, and I think that's right on the money.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, the very first motion picture camera was operated by a crank.
Yeah.
Which just flashed a bunch of pictures in front of you over, like a flip book.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of covers that.